Financial planner and Envision Financial, 62604749. Luke Smith at 4452 Townsend Street in Phillip. Down the end up there, you make good coffee, don't you?
Barbara's, look, she's a whiz on the machine.
Now, over the last 7 days before the last time we spoke, Luke, I noticed that the government has decided to shred their plans to get rid of trailing commissions for mortgage brokers.
Correct, that's
What
right.
does that mean?
So one of the proposals from Commissioner Hayne.
Wasn't that the one that was kind of under a question mark?
Well, there are a number of things that should be under a question mark
Absolutely.
in relation to what he's given there, because I think there's been a huge disconnection between the treatment of a large bank and then other smaller providers in the same industry, and I think everybody's been lumped in the same bucket as the larger banks. So they put forward to say that they would turn off ongoing commission payments for loans from banks to mortgage brokers that have provided advice to clients, which I think sort of flies in the face of the purpose of this Royal Commission. It seems to have been about penalising the bank for the way they've treated their customers, and the outcome of the Royal Commission has been to penalise the smaller players or competitors to the larger banks, which indirectly then forces the people we're trying to protect from the predator back to the predator. So the Liberal Party came out and said that they wouldn't pursue that option and sort of provided a lifeline and the viability of a number of businesses in the mortgage brokerage.
That's mortgage brokers.
Correct.
What happens to financial planners?
Well,
the other financial planners.
Yes, very much so. So on the insurance side, they have the Commission has put forward a proposal to turn off ongoing commission payments on insurance policies. I don't think he's actually considered the outcomes of that or the financial ramifications for business owners and also providers of the service to the consumer, because trailing commissions were always designed as a way of covering that claim time of 40 to 50 hours through the claim process, and to provide ongoing advice to people to make sure that the policies were relevant, accurate, etc., etc. So I think there's a huge disconnection there, because I don't think you can muddy, well, trail's okay here, but it's not there.
No, that's it.
When the driver here is, if trail commission is turned off, the consumer will not benefit, because in every likelihood they won't return that payment to the consumer anyway. If it's not something paid by the consumer, how is the consumer suffering when you're going to penalise an industry for providing advice?
What's the impact for financial planners?
Oh, look, there's a huge financial impost. Huge financial impost, because you're talking about ongoing remuneration to pay wages of staff, business expenses. You're also talking about serviceability of loans where people have expanded and acquired other practices to grow their business. It could have been used as a way of funding business expansion, business loans. You then turn off that remuneration. You're talking about very, very serious financial consequences, which probably weren't the objective, but I think they were a byproduct of being uninformed about the implications of the recommendations that were made.
So they weren't considered?
Well, I don't understand how anybody could voluntarily make an informed decision to financially interrupt or damage an industry that is heavily relied upon for ongoing advice to the
Any
Australian
likelihood
public.
they may stop that as well?
Look, you would like to think that the common sense would prevail, and the party that gets elected is actually there for the Australian people, because a lot of the talk about what's happening at the moment and some of the proposals from one of the party really are financially detrimental to the future of Australian retirement, and the willingness of people to have that Australian motto of try and get ahead and work hard. That's being taken from people, which I feel for the older generation. I really do, because I have clients in my office in tears.
Well, again, that particular part is saying, well, the amount of money that these pensioners from their funds that they've saved up for could provide more schools and buildings.
Look, that's
All right, things at hand, and thinking about the elderly too. The issue today from Envision Financial, Luke, we're talking about the key risk to your retirement planning, and I guess the word in that is risk to your retirement.
Yeah, look, very much so.
I didn't think there was any risk.
Well, look, I think with anything in life, there's risk. There's risk in an election. There's
Cross the road.
Look, the crossing outside my office is you take your life in your hands there as well. But today we're talking about some of the key risks that people may or may not think about when they're planning and looking to try and meet their objectives. So I guess one of the biggest risks that people would identify with is obviously volatility.
Yep.
Things going up, things going down, and I guess in relation to what they're trying to achieve. So changes in value through things that you can and can't control. Obviously that's going to impact people's emotional state and also their financial state along the journey. So that's one people need to think about.
Is also the first thing before you do this is to consider when you're going to retire.
Well, and that really leads me to my next bullet point,
Right.
time.
Time.
Because there's one thing we can't get more of, and it's generally time.
That's it.
We can increase wages, we can decrease wages, we can retire early, we can retire late, but the time we have to try and achieve our goals and the way we're going to achieve our goals is going to be driven by our planning process. Are we trying to do something in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? And a little later in the show, we're going to talk about ways that we can address these sorts of things. But time is definitely something that we see a lot of, where I think generally people leave a little bit too late and they come in sort of 5, 6 years out and go, right, this is what I want.
Or tomorrow I'm going to retire.
Or tomorrow.
Yeah.
I had one this week. Gentleman walked in and said, I hate my job, can I go? And by the end of the meeting I said, yes you could. He goes, perfect. So when are you going to go? Oh, maybe January. But it's always about understanding why.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to be able to do this, I'd like to be able to achieve that. And you can put things in relation to specific events, and obviously managing your time then makes things either feasible or not.
And Luke, does the time you decide to go or retire, which is a strange word anyway, because I know some retirees who don't stop working,
Correct.
dependent on the ducks you've got in the amount of eggs you have in a basket?
Look, very much so. I think it's always about saying, what are my resources? And also, what would I like to achieve? And it's about making sure that those two align, because generally speaking, there can be a huge disconnection between what you think you'll need and what you have will generate. And that brings me to the next risk is potentially income. Understand where your income comes from. Yeah. Make sure that, again, from the resources that you're working with, be it a share, be it a property, be it cash, be it fixed interest or anything else, make sure you understand what the likely income is going to be, because a lot of people say, I'd like X amount of income a year, but they don't understand where the dividends or where that's going to come from. So making sure you have the right income ties in with make sure your volatility or your asset allocation is appropriate. Now on the show we talk about driving the car. You can drive, if you think we're driving in a 100 zone, if we drive at 40, things are going to happen. You know, we can relate 40 to cash and fixed interest. Not a lot of income, not a lot of growth, but it's very, very safe.
Yeah, you get there.
You get there. You may be late,
and
you may annoy some people along the way, but you'll get there. Now, in the same analogy, we can go 150, 180 kilometres in a 100 zone. Higher risk.
Drive to distraction,
higher
crash
speed.
on the way, mate.
Crash, hit a tree, don't get upset, you're dead.
Yeah.
Now you know that, so you're talking about higher volatility. So understanding your volatility and your asset allocation is really important. And also then, where's my money coming from? Because different sectors, as we've discussed in other shows, different sectors provide different levels of income. So that's very important. Structures. Make sure you get your structure correct. So when we think about where we're going to invest money, there are a number of structures that we can use. And an example of a structure is a super fund. Your own name, your wife's name, your partner's name, a family trust, a company. So there are different structures that can hold assets that provide different efficiencies and benefits and considerations when it comes to saying, okay, what have I got to work with? What are the tax implications of what I'm working with? And where does my income come from? Now, superannuation is nothing more than a structure. It's a trust structure that holds assets for you in retirement with its sole purpose of being to provide you with an income stream when you decide to stop working.
You do all of this before you pick the date.
Oh, look, and I guess that's where I'm saying, get your structures right at the start, but start with the end in mind.
Right.
Okay, so you need to make sure
it's like going on a journey, isn't it?
Yeah, if you're going to buy an asset, you want to think about, okay, what happens if I sell this asset? What happens if I get income from this asset? How can I control where that goes? Now, in your own name, you've got one choice, you. A discretionary family trust, for example, could hold a property where income is dispersed across multiple people to try and maximise the amount of income that you can have after tax, but also be able to choose how and when you give things to people. So understanding your structures is very important because flexibility is key, and being able to make the most of your resources is very, very important. So that then leads me into the next one, which is obviously legislation.
Oh, okay. Right.
You know, legislative risk is a real thing.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that with proposals at the moment with the upcoming election to make changes to franking credits, to make changes to contribution thresholds, to make or introduce other taxes on inherited assets. So these are serious risks that have a direct impact on your lifestyle, your cash flow, and the benefit of what you've spent most of your working life trying to accumulate, so you have some choice.
Luke Smith, financial planner at Envision Financial. Their number 6260-4749. You got that? 6260-4749. First appointment, nothing to worry about, all free. 4452 Townsend Street, Phillip. If you're thinking about retirement today, key risks to your retirement planning on Canberra Live. It's 14. Luke Smith, financial planning with Envision Financial. We're talking about the key risks to your retirement. Okay, give us the good stuff. Where's the safety net? How do I protect myself from all this risk?
Yeah, well, look, I think there are a few things that people can do, because I think the biggest considerations that most have are, what can I earn?
Yep.
How can I save it? Where do I save it? And then what do I do with it?
There's also another one, how long am I going to live on this stuff?
Well, that too, and that's also a byproduct of your risk profile and obviously the amount of income or the risk that you take. So one of the things that we had there, obviously from a risk perspective, is inflation. So in real dollar terms, we need to have an allocation of growth assets to try and offset the effect of inflation over time, so that you can keep the value of your money in real dollar terms doing what you need it to do for the next 15, 20, 25, 30 years, depending on how long you live.
Can I jump in there, Luke? Should you expect to live in retirement the way you have during your working life?
Oh, look, you can expect to.
That's right, that's what I'm saying. Can you plan to do that? Or should you say, oh, look, I know I don't work, so I'm not going to be able to go out every night or eat smashed avocados every day. Hey? You've got to be real, haven't you?
Through some bread, yeah. Look, I think it's about everybody's situation is a little bit different, and I think the sooner you try and identify ways that you can move forward in a positive way, the greater you eliminate that second risk of time.
That's it.
The longer you've got, the more chance you have of trying to get a positive outcome. Now, I like to play a little bit of golf, but I'll never be Tiger Woods. So you've also got to sort of balance up your ambition and your ability.
Yeah.
You know, it's very difficult to retire on $5 million if you earn $50,000 a year.
Yeah.
So relevant to your situation, people can make informed, reoccurring, good, strong decisions to maximise the likelihood of them getting what they want.
This is what we started our conversation with. Risk in your retirement, you're planning for your retirement. You've got to consider the fact that you may not be able to fly first class forever now.
Look, I think people need to manage...
And that's a protection of its own, isn't it?
They need to manage their expectations, because a lot of people come in and see us and say, I'd like this in retirement. Okay, then to do that, you need to do A, B and C.
And you should have started 20 years ago.
And you should have started 20 years ago, and here's a balaclava, here you go. But yeah, it's about, the longer you leave it, the less you know, the less chance you have of actually getting that outcome, unless you have amazing cash flow or you inherit a huge amount of money. Some of the big things, the other thing that scares me a lot of late is the bank of mum and dad. Okay, so your kids, as much as we love them, could actually blow your retirement up. So one strategy we look at to say is, okay, have mum and dad pay for income protection contracts for their kids. So if we think about the average mortgage in the ACT, let's call it 500,000. Payments on that might be 25 grand a year. So if you've retired with $1 million and you're generating a 5% income stream, you're using $50,000 to meet your living costs. Now, if little Billy comes off his motorbike and can't work, loses his job and can't pay his mortgage, 25,000 is half of your retirement income. And mum and dad may or may not have the working capacity to add that back. So one strategy that's really smart for all the parents out there of adult kids who are still bulletproof, okay, because it takes a little while for you to put your big boy, big girl pants on and realise, hang on, I am an adult.
Income protection. Income protection
paid for by mum and dad.
Yeah.
Now, that indirectly protects mum and dad because they can keep their assets, and it also then ensures that the child can receive a tax deduction and benefit from that as well. So that's a really good way and a very basic way to protect your family, but also protect the likelihood of you being able to achieve your goals with the money that you're working with.
Yeah, so that's a strategy you can kick in straight away.
Look, that's one we use with our clients, and it's as a new parent myself, I think income protection is a great thing because it gives you security.
Okay, and that's the protection for your kids.
Yeah, well, and also indirectly for you, because they're not dumping into your savings that you may not be able to replenish.
Okay, you've got the dough. How do you keep your end result in mind?
Yeah, so I guess you also review your risk profile.
Yeah.
Understand how fast you want to drive the car, and then look under the hood with your super fund and see what's happening. Because these days, balanced doesn't always mean balanced. A lot of people say to me, well, what's balanced? After 18 and 19 years of doing this, I can honestly say I'm not entirely sure what balanced is anymore.
No.
Because Host Plus won Best Balanced Fund of the Year with 90% growth assets. I think balanced, 50-50 like a seesaw, you know, so understand your risk profile, have a look under the hood, do more sooner. Don't have to do a lot more, but you compound a little bit and a little bit and a little bit. As a wise man once said, lots of little fish still make for a big fry. So start a little bit earlier. Being older does not mean you need to be more conservative. No. Okay, this is one of these assumptions that people come in and say, oh, I've got a little bit older now, I need to be more conservative. And my answer to that is, so you don't need income. Oh no, I do. Yeah. But I'm a bit older. Okay, well let's find a happy medium. We don't have to drive at 170. We also don't need to drive at 40.
That's right.
Because generally people say, if I could earn 4 or 5% from my assets,
I'm happy.
I could live on that. Okay. Well, cash at 1 or 2 is not going to get that done.
Okay, now you mentioned earlier about legislation and change. How does that come into all this equation?
So I guess I stress this to most people at the moment. Let's not start jumping at shadows. Okay, until something passes as legislation and becomes law, let's not worry about what could or couldn't happen. I'd stress that to most people. Work with the facts, stay with the facts, and then be flexible and work around any new fact or law. So again, understand what the changes are, understand what they mean for you, and then make the appropriate changes.
Is there anything you should build in there, a buffer zone if things happen in legislation that may impact your retirement?
Look, I think leading into the unknown, control the controllables. If the law says you can make certain amounts of contribution and you're one of those people that likes clarity, take advantage of that while it is what you know it is. Because if it changed and the threshold fell and you couldn't put as much in, you'd probably be quite upset. So manage what you can do, get in front of it, and take away the variables that you may concern you. So if you think the non-concessional contribution cap is going to fall from 100 to 75,000, then get it in this year. You know, or get it in early. Get your 300,000 in as a one-off payment for the 3-year provision. So make the most of the changes, and if it means you have to do a little bit more because some of the thresholds have been lowered, then be proactive. It's one of the best things that people can do, and also make sure that you understand where your income's coming from. Make sure your structures remain appropriate. Just because something worked 3, 4, 5 years ago doesn't necessarily mean it's there now. So look at your costs, look at your fees. And as we said in other shows, look at your internal cost of investment, because if you could save $2,000 or $3,000 over a 20-year period, that's a few dollars.
It is too.
So understand where your fees are going, understand what you're getting for your money, and be proactive.
Now, if you've missed this, plenty of opportunities. You can go to the Knowledge Centre, which is great.
Exactly. So www.envisionfinancial.com.au. We've got the Knowledge Centre there. We've also got, you can Google the Strategy Stacker, where I talk about money on the iTunes for the podcast lovers out there, and obviously YouTube. We video the shows now and provide
Sorry about that.
yeah, that's it. And provide some content from an educational standpoint to give the key takeouts. The other thing I would stress to people is make sure that you're working with a good recruiter. This one gets missed a lot. So everything we do in relation to planning for retirement is about income. Well, one of the things that people don't take advantage of is a good recruiter. So if you've got a $100,000 job now and you'd like a $150,000 job, engage with a good recruitment company, because they can give you the background and the knowledge and the opportunities. Because a lot of people want to increase what they save, and the outcome is, well, I need to cut costs. Well, why don't you upskill, train, educate? I was chatting with a very good mate of mine from People Bank today, and he pointed out that we should actually be part of your recruitment plan and your retirement plan, because we help you get more income, which means you can save more, which means you can put more into super. So he brought it right down to grassroots and said, listen, make me part of your retirement plan. And the people at People Bank That's what they do.
There you go, 6260-4749. Luke Smith and his great team, Coffee Bar, will make one. Financial planner at Envision Financial. You can see them 4452 Townsend Street, Phillip. Get it in a row, get the knowledge you need. First visit for free, 6260-4749.
See you next week.